Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's
Do
go.
you want to kick off the Starstock episode, or do you want me to do the honors as you plug your headphones in?
Listen, my headphones are in, and sometimes I try not to use the headphones. People like, put your headphones back in. The audio quality is even worse with no headphones. But so my Starstock episode, I'm excited. I'm excited for Starstock. I'm excited to see what happens. I'm excited with the data that we have from Starstock. Some of it, I'm gonna have to do some deep dive in and figure out what it means, because there's some things that we're gonna tell you today that I honestly can't explain. So that's fun. There's a nice little tease, right, for you guys. I love these episodes because it gets you thinking about the hobby in a different way, right? I'm sitting here thinking about, who am I buying? I got Top Shot. Who am I selling? What am I flipping this week? But Starstock, at least the way that I use it, now it's twofold. It's, the graded stuff, and it's that daily fantasy type play. Those guys who I'm going to buy right now with the NBA playoffs starting, who I might think, if this guy has one good game, I'm going to be able to sell him and basically stock market play. Got some chips over there, huh, buddy? Nice. So in case you're hearing the chip bag in the audience, I got to put some color on it. So the kids got some chips.
I've never been a guy that could just eat like a handful of chips. If you ever put a chip bag in front of me, I'm the type of guy that has to finish the whole thing. So now I just don't buy chips.
I just eat one chip and then push it away and say, no, my figure. I have to worry about my figure. There's a slogan that's made for you, that Lay's, I'm pretty sure. It was like, I bet you can't eat just one. That was like a whole slogan.
Once you pop, the fun don't stop, right?
Once you pop, you can't stop. That's Pringles. But it was Lay's was like, I bet you can't eat just one. Like, you can't just, if you're going to have one, you're just going to continue to eat them. That's what they're saying. So listen, before we jump in. Do you mind if
I do a public service announcement before we jump in?
You get me nervous. So guys, little public service announcement disclaimer from Cage before he does that. We don't talk. Like, we talk once a day, sometimes twice a day, but usually there's no prep. There's like, hey, you ready for an episode? Let's jump on now and let's do our episode. I don't know what he's going to say. So if he says something that offends you, don't blame me. If he comes on right now, if he comes on, this is what I'm doing. If he comes on now and says LeBron is getting knocked out in the first round or something crazy like that, it's not on me. Not on me. It's all on him. All right, go.
I'll go a different way with this. So I had three really good buddies in high school, and we always did this thing. It was our senior year. Senior year, I was already committed to Drexel to play soccer. Literally just senioritis, didn't do anything. So every day after school, especially as summer was getting closer, starting in April, May, we would play this game. It was called Kobe's versus the LeBrons. So it was my buddy and I, who loved Kobe, versus my other buddy and his friend who loved LeBron. So we just played 2-on-2 basketball. We must have had a count to 100 games. So it reminded me a lot of that. It's funny, guys, these last 2 weeks in card porn, I'll give you a shout out here. I mean, card porn goes by, the neighborhood watchdog. And I think we've all seen card porn's content. I think he, she, they are very fair. I think they're very fair. So he gave me a piece of feedback just yesterday, talking about, how my takes on LeBron have been a little polarizing, and some of the things I said in yesterday's episode, he also or she also didn't like. Guys, you need to understand, and one word that I'm applying or approaching to in 2021 is this word grace. And I think we kind of live without grace. We sit behind a computer, sit behind a screen, and we dehumanize people and don't understand that, we're all just trying to do the best we can. So just truly understand that I am showing up here every single day, and I'm putting in the work behind the scenes as well, reading the right books, watching film to get better. And you need to understand, some days I'll say things the right way. Other days it won't flow as well. None of it has ever had the intention, I'll promise you this, and the people that are closest to me know this, with any malice in my heart. It's never meant to hurt somebody. It's never meant to offend somebody. And typically, it's not even a personal attack on the person. It's what they do. It's about their actions, not about their character. And sometimes we toe the line. And I think if we all kind of gave each other a little bit more grace and understanding and humanity, that, hey, we're doing the best we can, and some things will fall on deaf ears and some things will work. So I wanted to come on here and share that little bit, because I think card porn, he does a good job, or she, I can't even know how to address
Let's call it they.
With the whole pronoun things.
Yeah.
The whole pronoun thing.
They're like an army.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the feedback. It's noted. it's appreciated, it's respected. I've always surrounded myself with people who can give it to me straight. I always felt that the people in my life that could give it to me straight, even if I didn't like it, as an athlete, I would get better. So sincerely, all of you guys and gals that reach out that said, yo, your take on LeBron left me feeling this certain type of way, or yesterday's episode left me feeling a certain type of way. We read it. I listen to it. I respect it. So please keep it coming, and I'll keep trying my best to deliver for you guys, both our internal team, our content team, and our external, our community. So that's my public service announcement. We can jump right into Starstock.
Before we do Starstock, I'm gonna say this: he does not take feedback from me at all. Right? I give him feedback, and he's like, "No, you're an idiot." So if I was smart, right? If I was smart, and no one's ever accused me being smart. But if they're
not watching this on YouTube, Cage, how are they going to know that you're completely joking?
But because I'll get there, but you cut me off. That's one for you. You're always saying I cut you off. I got one in the bank, buddy. So I try to tell him, hey, maybe you should do this. Maybe he doesn't listen. So if I were smart, like if I were an evil genius, that's a YouTube one right there. If you're listening and you missed it, I did a whole Dr. Evil thing there. You got to watch these on YouTube. There's some subtle, fun things going on. But if I were an evil genius, I would create an alter ego account like card porn that was really me, and then send feedback to Andrew through that account and say, hey, Andrew, it's me, card porn. Maybe you should try this and because I know you're not going to listen to Cage per se, but maybe you'll listen to the hobby watchdog card porn. I'm just saying that if I were an evil genius, I would do something like that. But I'm not. I'm not. I promise, guys. I'm not an evil genius. All right, so Starstock, let's roll.
I'm excited to announce, and guys, I'll keep you posted on this. I sent in my recent PSA sub, which was mostly just modern. It was Prism, Mosaic, Hoops. Those were the three types of cards that graded in Jason Tatum, Zion, Ja, Hero, a few other guys. I'm sending that all to Starstock, and I urge you guys to take into consideration the Spring Slabs promo. Yep. So if you're sending just 25 slabs, you're going to get $12 back from shipping and a $10 bonus credit. 5 slabs or more, you're going to get your refunded shipping. If you send up to 100 slabs, and I mean, who doesn't have a ton of slabs these days? You get a $100 bonus credit and your refund and shipping. But the point is, you're going to have them in a vault. And I would start looking at Starstock a little bit for the vault features and the instant ownership transfer. And whether it's this year with some of the players or you're already preparing for next NBA season, I'm taking advantage of it, seeing if it's going to work in my interest. And I urge you guys to consider taking it into consideration. I urge you guys to consider it as well.
So, guys, just for more detail on it, take a look. Go over to starstock.com. It's the banner on the homepage. It's right on the top, right on mobile site, you name it. It's right there. It talks about the spring discount, the spring offer. It's running until May 31st with different levels of, if you send in a submission, what they will give you back, free money in your account, refunding shipping, as Andrew's talking about. Details are all right there. I have 25 cards sitting there. I've been sitting here crossing my fingers that I get some PSA returns back that I could immediately just add on to those 25 that I have sitting and send them in and do even more. But as we approach, it ends May 31st. As we approach, the end of May, I may just have to send in these 25. But yeah, it's a no-lose situation. I mean, come on now. This is, they're paying for your shipping into them, and you're now going to have slabs in there, in a vault. And you can trade them, you can sell them, you can do whatever you want with them, and build up a bankroll in there that allows you to buy some other stuff. And I'm going to talk to you about some of the stuff that I'm thinking about buying from Starstock as as basketball playoffs keep on going. But let's jump into it, man. Let's talk about the data.
So did anything stick out to you, or do you want me to do kind of a high level?
So I'll let you do a high level, but how about this? How about I talk about exactly the ones that stuck out to me? One I can explain and one I can't. And maybe we'll get there. But it just missed hitting 50%. Baseball's at 49.3% of the sales breakdown by sport. So basketball in the last week actually fell back down under 40. So it went down 9% of the volume of sales, and baseball went up, which is a little odd. I would think maybe people would be buying now leading up to the playoffs, but maybe what it shows is that people already did that. And maybe they're looking to sell them now. Maybe as the lead up to the playoffs, people are looking to. Maybe people are hanging on to them and not selling, waiting for the playoffs to start. But the one thing that stuck out to me is now it is baseball. Basically half the sales. You have football cards on there, you have basketball cards on there, you have all kinds of stuff on the site. But baseball is now half of the sales. And the second one that stuck out to me, we'll give you all the data, guys, but the top 5 teams by sales count. Okay, we get the top 5 teams. So it's no surprise to me that a team like the Celtics are on there, because we know people are buying like Tremont Waiters, right? People are buying him because, he had a couple good games, and maybe he's one of those, like I call the Peyton Pritchard, leading into the playoffs, maybe who can show up and actually, do some stuff. He got additional minutes, he can play. So that doesn't surprise me that they're on there. It doesn't surprise me a team like the Dodgers are on there, because people are buying Bichette, people are buying, other players, on the Dodgers, and they're one of the best teams in baseball. But what did surprise me was the number 1 team by a long shot, significantly higher than any other team, was the Oakland Athletics. There were 1,239 cards of Oakland Athletics purchased in this last week, right? So almost 200 athletic cards per day purchased. But what's weird about it is I don't see any athletic player in like the top 5 by sales, or by count, by volume, you name it. So I don't know who's leading that charge. I don't know if it's AJ Puck. I don't know if it's the Kid Paulson people are buying. The Bowman Chrome first card of him. I don't know where it is. So that's the one that's like a teaser for me. Like normally I can understand the top team, something happened. If the Celtics have a bunch of guys or something like that, I get it. Or the Cleveland Cavaliers on a week where Sexton and Garland go crazy, I'll understand it. But to almost have 200 per day Oakland Athletics being purchased now, they're a good team. They got some good players. But what's driving?
Who do you think they're buying?
I don't know. I have no idea. I have an AJ Puck up for sale, and it's a nice one. Nobody bought that, so it's
not him.
I mean, maybe my price is too high. You never know. I like him, so maybe I'm not on the floor on him. So I don't know. I honestly have no idea. But that one, you asked what stuck out. That stuck out to me.
Cage, have you been watching more baseball or basketball? Let's just say the last 4 weeks.
So I definitely watched basketball this weekend because I wanted to see, what was going to happen in the play-ins, and I will be watching. Tonight's going to be huge basketball. So right now it'll be basketball, but before that it was more baseball. I would say probably 50-50, but definitely more baseball in there, especially this last week. Do you know who the player of the league was in the American League? It was Aaron Judge, right? So when guys in the Yankees are actually playing good ball, I like watching that, even though, they I think they've lost their last 2 games. They lost the last one to Baltimore and couldn't finish a sweep. And then they lost yesterday. Garrett Cole got smacked around and gave up a couple home runs to Texas. But before that, last week, Aaron Judge in 6 games had 5 home runs. He's turning it on. He had 5 homers in 1 week. 2 in 1 game. 1 pulled left field, 1 opposite direction. On 1 opposite field, he went oppo on 1. So when the Yankees are playing well and they're pitching well, and I watch Yankee games. I'll watch whatever the national game is. Last night, because there was no basketball, I definitely watched baseball. I watched. It is so weird seeing Albert Pujols in a Dodgers uniform, but he came up to the plate. You think
he chose that just to stay in LA?
I mean, I think he chose it because it probably gave him a real good chance to win a championship, right? If I said to you right now, you could sign on for a team. And you can only sign with 1 team right now. What's going to give you the best shot to win a championship? I think he signed with the Dodgers with their pitching and their offense. I mean, there are some really good teams. Don't get me wrong, but the Dodgers seem to be, the favorite to win. So I think if this might be your last year, your swan song, sure, stay. And it doesn't hurt that he's still in LA. I heard, through the grapevine that he actually reached out to St. Louis and said that he would take, basically like a mentoring role, like limited playing time. And, kind of like coach / stuff, to return there. That was where this guy, I know it's a Starstock episode, Pujols, probably not a lot of Starstock cards for him, right? But I mean, this is a guy, he not only won 3 MVPs, but, I think he won it in like 05, maybe 03, 05, 08. Like in that decade, between 2001 when he started in 2010, now he won 3, but he finished second in 4 other years. So this is a guy who in a decade finished top 2 in MVP voting 7 times in one decade. I mean, talk about Mount Rushmore kind of guy. For that generation, he's on the Mount Rushmore. I don't know if he's on the full Mount Rushmore of baseball people, but he, for that generation, definitely he's on there. But it was cool, and he came up yesterday. His first at bat, he hit one I thought was gone, but it kind of stayed in the park. And then the second one, Mookie Betts is on third. I think there were 2 outs, and he hit a single through the middle, had an RBI. I mean, I definitely watched some baseball last night. Trout got hurt. Pilar got hit in the face with a pitch. Like I said, the Yankees stunk it up. And, got beat up pretty badly. But yeah, I mean, does that answer it? I never answer with any brevity, man. I'm looking forward to the basketball playoffs, but if there's sports on, I'll watch it.
You answered it perfectly. You answered it in the only way that my buddy Cage could answer. Let's talk a little bit of NBA. Rips and I did most of the talking yesterday. So what do you see? What are some angles that you might be hoping Luka Nation might take notice as the playoffs approach? I actually think this dip in NBA cards on Starstock will start to correct. And I think we're going to see a lot more activity in the following weeks with NBA playoffs. I just think this week, if you look at it in an isolated kind of vacuum, there wasn't much going on and there wasn't much to invest in. Right, a lot of players were being rested. A lot of players weren't playing. You weren't kind of sure what would happen.
Yeah,
I think you're going to start seeing that number trend up. So I'm curious, what angles? What are you looking for as the playoffs commence?
It's a good one. It's a good one, right? So most people are expecting me to say the playoffs are starting. Here's a guy I think is going to fly in the playoffs. Here's a guy I want you to invest in now before the playoffs start, right? And we got to ask that question on Coffee with Cage. If you haven't listened, go listen. If you're one of the 2 people in the world who hasn't listened to Coffee with Cage, our most recent one after a 2-week hiatus, come on now. And we gave a lot of questions about that. Here's my play, and it's a Starstock play, all right? Because I think it might even go down. I think people might, look to move this cheaper so that they could buy into somebody else to make a playoff run. This past week, Zion Prism PSA 10s was selling in the 400s, under $500 on Starstock, right? Because the seller only has to pay 5% instead of 13%, which is a huge difference on a card like that, right? Let's say you're looking for a Zion Prism PSA 10 card. If a seller sells it to you for $450, right? Seller sells it to you for $450. That's $22.50 in Starstock fees, right? So they're getting $427.50. The same seller sells it to you for $500 on eBay. They're losing 13%. So they're losing $65. It's basically $430. A $455 Starstock sale is the same thing as a $500 sale on eBay, right? So you can use that. You have to use that to your advantage. And he's out. He finished the season out of the headlines with a finger injury. It's not anything that's going to linger at all. It's not anything that's going to cause any kind of problem to his game going forward. And you're not going to hear about him in the playoffs at all. He's going to be forgotten for a long time. So while people are in the playoffs and while people who are basketball folks might want to they might want to move some stuff around in their account, and people who may previously have had a Zion hoping for a playoff run, they might move that now $5, $10, $15, $25 less than what they otherwise would sell it for, so that they can buy a Tatum if Tatum's their guy. Or they could buy a Kawhi if they think Kawhi is going to make a run. Or they can buy an Anthony Davis. So keep an eye out, because there's going to be bargains on Starstock on plays like that. And it's not where anybody else is looking right now.
Where do you think Devontae goes in the offseason?
Dude, that's another great play, right? Because you buy his PSA 10 present for like $35, $30. It might even go down. But if any team signs him that's got any type of legitimate, playoff chances, and he's playing meaningful basketball, that's a guy who, when he was healthy this year, because, he had some nagging injuries, nothing major, when they let him play, he put up great. He put 25 points a game. He put up these. Obviously that wasn't his average, because a lot of times he was coming off the bench. He lost his starting job with a knee injury and whatnot to LaMelo, and that team just doesn't need him. They don't need him.
I was just gonna say, kid, you've worked in corporate America. Ladies, please be quiet. Just kidding.
They were excited. I said Devontae. The team.
You heard the
background. They're laughing. They're like, "Why? What team doesn't need Devontae Graham?" They were laughing. Yeah.
No, people are having fun. It's a cool complex I live in here. I think you'd enjoy it if you ever come visit. But you've been in business. You have a work anniversary. Guys, you believe this stuff? Yes. He has a literally first day that he started work. You want to tell him the day?
It just passed this past weekend. Yeah.
No, September 10th.
Oh, you're talking about
2001 was your.
Oh, I thought
Yeah.
you meant like my anniversary of my specific job. But yeah, no, I started in the workforce on September 10th.
So
was my,
there's and you know that there's people that have come and gone through your work environment, through your work experience, that just needed a change of scenery.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what Devontae needs a little bit. And I think more than likely in the offseason, you're going to see that with him. You have Malik Monk, who's able to put up big numbers. LaMelo's clear the future. Terry Rozier's on a big contract. Gordon Hayward. These are all guys that are ball-dominant players, and there just wasn't room for Devontae. And Devontae's kind of like the please-all type of player.
Yep.
That he'll accommodate other guys, but at his own detriment. We've seen those people. And I think I would love to see him on the Mavs, for example. I think he could do so many amazing things with that second unit. So I think looking at a guy like that whose PSA 10 is $35. I think I saw some sales in 25.
Yeah, in the 20s. Yeah,
in the 20s. And when you're looking, you're like, okay, PSA 10. I mean, this guy's not even covering his grading fee anymore.
Nope.
And you're getting a guy that's able to put up some serious numbers, whether that's off the bench or in the starting lineup. I think that's a really interesting kind of buy right now, where everyone's looking to the right. You go with a Devontae Grant type of play. And then once a trade or a move or even something about a rumor of him being on the trade block happens, I think you start to see that card bump. And remember, this is the amazing thing about numbers. 25 to 50 is 50%, right? So I remember this card was as high as 100 before the
easily over
crash.
100. Remember, I don't have any left. So this is not a pump here. I don't have any by Devontae left, right? So this is more of a you got rid of them all high, and this is a low. And you're right. Those cards will likely go up before he even steps foot back on a court anywhere. Once you start to hear the news of what teams are sniffing around him in the offseason, and you get a whiff of a good team, Devontae might go to the Lakers. Forget it. Everybody, we'll buy his cards. Whoever it's going to be, now he's going to be back in the news, and he was a forgotten man. And you have nailed it with him, right? He's one of those guys that it's Bruce Lee comes to mind. Be like water, because he's as flexible as it gets, right? They needed him to be the number one guy last year. They needed him to be their lead scorer because they had nobody else scoring, and he did that. This year they didn't need that, and he was more a facilitator, more bench player, more injured player. But you're right. I mean, I think he would fit into whatever scheme of whatever team assigned him. So it's definitely something I'm looking forward to.
I'll keep rocking. Let me bring up a name named Tyrese Maxie. So in his final game, he put up over 25 points for the Sixers. He was also started really, really well this season. And in the middle, he kind of faded. Now, I don't know if this is a conspiracy theory or what, but I think smart coaches, they don't put all of their bullets. They don't shoot off all of their bullets in the middle of the regular season. And I think they're saving players so that they can maybe surprise the opponent in the postseason. It's a bit of a conspiracy theory, but it happened last year with Tyler Hero as well. He kind of came out of nowhere, but if you actually watch Tyler Hero throughout this regular season, he played really, really well. He just didn't get a lot of minutes, and Spoelstra used him intelligently. I'm starting to see the same thing with Tyrese Maxey, because remember, he's a rookie. And coaches, I mean, these are experienced coaches. They understand how it works. One, they understand that rookies fall off because their legs aren't used to an 82 or, in this case, 72 game season. So they conserve that energy. And they also understand that rookies don't have all the moves that they might have later in their career. So they don't want the defense to scout them. So that's what I'm seeing with Tyrese Maxey. I think this guy is going to be a really interesting player for the Sixers. I think he's going to get some time in that 1 versus 8 series where I fully predict the Sixers are going to have too much talent for other teams to handle. But I would take a look at Tyrese Maxey. I think he has a lot of long-term potential. I also think he could be that scorer off the bench that the Sixers need. And as much as Shake Milton is typically that role, I think Maxey could give him a run for his money.
I like it. What else do you see in the data? What else do you see there? Because I got one other one that I want to point out. And we can run through high level the data that they gave us here, but we are it's a great segue. Obviously, we have data in here and a whole segment from Luca Nation Conrad, our man Sam, who does a great job with the analysis. And so obviously that's a big part of this episode. But what I'm going to say is let's give our man Sam some credit. Let's give Luca Nation Conrad some credit here, because last week he gave you some basketball plays and he went through the data and said, hell, there's a couple of guys that I think, they might have been beaten up for no reason, right? And there's no reason for it at all. One of them on that list was Markelle Fultz, which, by the way, is just one of the craziest things in the world. When I looked at Sam's analysis, he was down a week and a half, 2 weeks ago now. He was down 50%. I mean, his injury didn't get worse. You know what I mean? He's been injured the whole year, and his cards they took a little bit of a dive. And what Sam was saying basically was there's no reason for that. That's a bounce back candidate. And if you bought into his cards with that dip, like buy the dip kind of thing, right? There's no reason for those cards to not come back up as he gets healthy and as we head into the next season, and he plays well. So I'm going to give it to Sam Conrad's stamp of approval and give him some credit for it, because on our top performers list, number 3, up almost 25%, was Markelle Fultz. So you guys obviously listened. So pay attention to what the kid's saying. I mean, he was behind OG Anunoby, who people people love him. Well, maybe he was also beaten down too much, because that guy, he more than doubled. And Robert Williams, right? So
I'm holding one OG. I'm holding one OG card.
And I mean, it shouldn't surprise people who's down. I mean, Tatum. I mean, he's down from the week before. Rui Hachimura. So if there's one thing I'll tell you about Rui, Ian likes him, and we definitely have some cards of his. But my co-host here, who is the biggest Wizard fan I know this year, I don't want to call him Wizard fan, he famously talks about how it's Beal and Westbrook and literally no one else. And Rui had that chance, man. He had that chance to step up as a number 3 guy, and he just never did, right? And, to see
he doesn't have
Rui,
the skill set, Cage, in my opinion.
Yeah,
he shoots that mid-range jumper, and he's kind of this in-between player. Sorry,
he fits the mold, though, right? No, you're 100% right. He fits the mold, though, as a guy who you would think more people would say, all right, you got a shot at the playoffs. Who's one of these dark horse candidates to put your money into who could show out and have a good game? He's a starter, right? He's on a team that puts up a ton of points. He obviously should be learning something, you would hope. I mean, you're a big guy into making your teammates around you better, right? That's your thing, right? So are Beal and Westbrook bad at doing that, or is Rui just not what people thought he was going to be?
There's two answers to this. So you make your teammates better in the off season by inspiring them to be better, to want to work on their game and creating a culture of, the off season isn't time off. It's time to work on the things in your game that are a weakness. So the off season is for that. But I'll tell you, and I've seen this mistake happen time and time and time again, is people try to make fetch happen heading into the playoffs. I know you did that. And what I mean by that is I think the best players get better in the playoffs and the worst players get worse in the playoffs. I think playoffs are more of a magnifier than suddenly hoping that something will change.
All right.
That
makes sense. As I said,
I don't know if Rui could have potential. I don't know if Rui will be successful in the NBA. I really don't. I want him to be successful, but I don't know if he has the skill set. He'll certainly have to work on it. But I don't imagine seeing a ton of. I don't imagine him getting a ton of time in the postseason. I really don't. I think the ball is going to be in Westbrook and Beal's hands. I think you're going to see Beal play 40 minutes a game. I think you're going to see Westbrook play 40 minutes a game. I just don't see him getting much time and touches. I think Gafford, Westbrook, Beal is basically going to be, and Burton's just chucking threes. Is kind of going to be their playbook.
I forget what episode it's in, guys. It was definitely one of our first 10 episodes. I think it might have been episode 8. So we're talking about like almost a full year ago. I gave a play. And it's not because I was a genius. It's because you knew at some point in time he was going to come up and he was going to play and he was going to play well and people would be looking for his cards. And there is a lot to be said. If you're not in this game for a week or a month and you're going to play the long game, there's a lot to be said for look at the pipeline of talent that's out there. I mean, look at J-Rod, right? Look at Wander Franco. Look at the Martian in the Yankees, right? Dominguez. There's a roadmap for those guys, those almost can't miss guys. I don't even care if they're successful in the majors. You just need them to get there. And guys like that, they're going to get there. So if you go back to the first 10 episodes, like I said, I think it's episode 8, I gave our friend Jared from Seattle, who's the number 2 sales player by value this week, sandwiched between Luca and Trey as a play. And trust me, guys, when I gave him as a play, it was like a tenth of what he's selling for now. And it doesn't surprise me that he's on there because he was called up. He got his first major league hit. It was a home run. They got all these headlines, and it was the time to basically sell if you were holding them. That's something to think about, right? Like, it's something to think about. What should you have in your Starstock portfolio? Read some fantasy stuff, right? Read some fantasy dynasty. Read some waiver wire pickup kind of things. Read a couple fantasy books and say, okay, who are the next big call-ups this year? And be ahead of the headlines, because people will react when there's a headline. And if you're buying that guy before the headline happens, you're buying him now and selling him higher in a month. So it's a way to definitely use Starstock 100%. And I'm wondering whether or not this Oakland number is because they have some rookie that I don't even know about who's going to be called up soon, and everybody's jumping on it ahead of time. I don't know. So
Trey Young. Trey Young is going to be interesting. I'm really, really excited to see how his card prices do in the playoffs. I think he's probably the most high reward, high risk player in the playoffs. I think his cards could really suffer if he plays poorly. I think his cards could do extremely well if he plays well. And I don't know if there's any in between, because if you kind of look at it, their first round series is going to be a huge test. It's against the Knicks. And if the Knicks possibly expose them, Trey looks like he's a poor defender. He shoots shots that he shouldn't take. He's not utilizing his teammates well. I think that Trey Young sell-off continues. On the contrary, if he is able to propel them and this Atlanta Hawks wins 4-1 in a 5-game series, and he looks head and shoulders above the Knicks, and the Knicks were the best defensive team, that could be a real tailwind for his cards. So I'm really interested to see what's going to happen to Trey Young cards. I also want to talk about two other guys in the Western Conference, and I think it's going to surprise you. I was thinking about this last night. So Jordan Poole, I mentioned him on the episode yesterday. Watch his cards. Watch him play. I think he's going to be a 6th Man of the Year candidate next year with the Warriors. Portland Trailblazers. I had this weird thought that they could get to the NBA Final. And I'm sitting here thinking, and guys, I don't know if you guys know me. All my closest friends do. I'm someone who asks questions or create hypotheses and test them, stress test them. Well, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, the Portland Trailblazers, well, they've had a weird season. I don't know if I've put them in the top 4 or 5 of the West. But let's see, who do they have to beat out of the West? Well, the Lakers. Hopefully the Lakers won't meet up with them. This is what they're thinking. Okay. They could beat the Nuggets because they don't match up well with the Lakers is the point. Nuggets. Can they beat that Nuggets team? Yeah, I certainly think they can. Clippers. Dame owns Paul George. Suns. Okay, that could be interesting, but I'll give the Trailblazers the edge there, or I'll put them neck and neck. Jazz. Put them neck and neck. In a wide open Western Conference, why can't the Trailblazers make a run? They have all the pieces. And that got me thinking. I started looking at CJ McCollum. He had the best year of his career last year. And CJ McCollum's in that infamous 2013 set with Giannis. And I'm trying to think, is CJ getting the love that he deserves? I mean, he's still early in his career. It's not by his career is by no means finished. He's a Bradley Beal type of player with the Bradley Beal type of numbers, maybe a little slightly less because he's second fiddle to Dame. And I started thinking, is CJ an interesting play? So, guys, watch out for the Blazers and take a look at CJ McCollum's cards. He's improving year over year over year. He's got the right mindset, and he's still fairly young.
I like CJ. I like watching his game. I watch a lot of Portland because I'm a Carmelo Anthony fan, and if Melo is able to add a little championship, that would be real nice. But I watch, and CJ. The only knock I have on him is he just has a look of the second fiddle. You know what I mean? Like, he just looks like the 1B. He looks like the Pippen, right? That's just he looks like the Chris Middleton. And nothing wrong with those guys, obviously, right? I mean, they're all great players. They're all great role players. They're all players that that will help a team advance. But it's clearly Dame's team. That doesn't mean McCollum can't go out there and shoot the lights out and make his cards go up significantly. In fact, it might mean that his cards are probably undervalued because he flies so under the radar. So I don't think it's a crazy take. We've talked about this for a while. the West is as wide open as it gets. And yeah, they have some great teams with great records, but the ones that sit on the top, show me. Like, none of them have done it, right? As a matter of fact, most of them have choked, right? So I'll believe in you, Chris Paul, when you give me something to believe in, is basically what I'm saying.
And I think you could put a lot of guys into that category, but that's also exciting, right? Because we haven't seen a wide open Western Conference like this in a long time. So yeah, I'm really interested. And just on the Lakers, I actually think the Lakers have more success as the playoffs go on, if that makes sense. I think what the Lakers would struggle with is these 1 or 2 game play-ins where you have hungry teams in a one game, leave it all out there. And you know how much, the number one, you always want to beat the number one guy. So that extra motivation with the Spurs, Grizzlies, or Warriors, to me, that's way more dangerous than if they get that 8 or 7 seed, specifically the 8 seed. I think the Jazz are not happy to meet with the Lakers. I don't think that's a good matchup for the Jazz at all. So I actually think the Lakers' vulnerability is early on rather than later on.
Yeah, because I didn't think it happened in one game. I agree 100%. All right. Thanks, everybody. This is a fun one.
You enjoyed it?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I do. I love these Starstock ones because you got to look at it differently. You got to look at some of the different stuff. I mean, I never in a million years would have come on here thinking that the top player by sales count and volume was Jalen Smith. I'm pretty sure that's the dude that looks like an accountant.
Is that from the Suns? Remember his Top Shot moment was going nuts, and I pulled it. I was like, "Who is this guy?"
Yeah, I said it. I think he's the NBA's accountant because he wears the glasses. He's got like the goggles on.
Specs.
And that is the number one by sales count. 501 of his cards were purchased in the last week. So I love this data. I love it because I just sometimes stuff comes out of left field. There's somebody out there who is a big Jalen Smith fan.
Folks. Yeah, dingling Starstock.
Exactly. All right, guys. Thank you for listening. We appreciate it.